Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Booked, a place to explore the realms of creativity. Today's guest is Ian Salavon, author of short stories and speculative fiction. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, and thank you so much for taking part in this podcast. I've been very excited about having this conversation with you because I've read a few of your short stories, and they are mind-bending, and I very much enjoyed them. So I'm interested to get into the creative mind of Ian and see what's going on in there. So what I thought we'd start talking about is your sort of creative fuel, really. So where do you find the inspiration on a daily basis? What drives you to write?
I've always written. I've been writing, in some form or fashion ever since I was a little kid. So, with starting with comic books and stuff like that. And my mother was a huge aficionado of the old sci-fi fantasy war horses, Anne McCaffrey and Isaac Asimov and that kind of stuff. So I think I got the bug from her as far as a reader goes.
That's
and
cool.
I just always kind of immersed myself in other worlds, with tabletop RPGs and just writing that kind of stuff. And so it's just always been a part of what I've done. And I come from an art family. So my father's a fine artist. My brother's a fine artist. My grandfather's a musician. So, we always had art in the house. It was it's like the highest moral ideal was art when I was growing up.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So having that sort of creative environment from an early age, I guess that was one of your biggest influences.
Oh, most definitely. Having a family that was, really encouraging of doing that. And I mean, it was, like I said, it was a moral imperative. I mean, doing art was almost a religious thing. It was very regimented, and okay, now we're gonna do our art, and here's some modeling clay for your birthday, and here's some pastels for Christmas, and that kind of thing. So that happened all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So with parts of your family doing that style of art, what led you to doing writing as your sort of art form?
I think there's, and I don't know what the research is on this, to be honest with you, but I think there's some sort of a biological connection with narrative. And I don't know if it just hit me harder than it hit everyone else in the family or not, but I tend to see the world through stories. I tend to break down the world through stories. And I think that's just something rather than images, whereas, a fine artist, a classical fine artist might break the world down in images, and this is what I see. And for me is more of this is what happened, or this is what is happening, kind of a thing. And I think that has something to do with it. But as far as ideas for stories, I can't tell you where those things come from. Just to give you an example, I'd see a dog, pissing on a tree, and I would wonder, what is that dog telling other dogs? Is this my territory? Is it like good food in the dumpster behind the hotel, or what? I don't know what are they smelling? So that gives me the idea to write a story about, can dog, it's more than just a snapshot. It's more than just a postcard. It's it's an actual treatise or some sort of paragraph telling this person something. And so I got the idea to write this story called "We Used to Be Best Friends," where inexplicably dogs become sentient and they can speak and just have human intelligence as far as like on their same level, and so what does that mean? So do we have canine terrorist groups now, and we have canine religions now, and that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
so that I'll just go down a rabbit hole with something weird and just and just see what ends up coming out. Like I'm actually working on a short story right now where a scientist turns himself into a cat so he can avoid paying alimony. So, so, so yeah, so that's kind of where I go with this stuff. Something simple, and how can something be even more simple? So I guess that's kind of where I come from.
Yeah, reading some of your work, I wouldn't say that you think of things that simply, because you take the ordinary and make it extraordinary. And there's this really fascinating take on, okay, so let's say, for example, Move, Eat, Repeat, one of your short stories. This is a point of view story from the undead, and
Right.
never would have thought of it. And giving them thoughts and feelings and emotions, to me, that's not simple. And there's lots of like twists and turns in your work, and you add quite a lot of weirdness into your stories. So is there an element there where you sort of consider the normal answer and then you think, well, that's not that interesting, what if it was this?
Yeah, it is, and I think that has got to come from my love of just the short form in general. Long form, you get the chance to get immersed in someone's, world, and how the economics works, and and that kind of stuff. And in short form, you have a very small amount of time to tell your story. It's I've always enjoyed the brevity of something. I've always enjoyed, like, when someone's, leaving someone hanging, I like that. I've always liked that about, like the Twilight Zone has been one of my favorite, I think, pieces of work in general, ever. I think Rod Serling is a dramatically underrated writer. And as far as simple goes, to me, it just feels simple. The story of zombies trudging across a landscape is as old as dirt. I mean, everybody's told that story, but I haven't read any stories where what would be the one thing that hasn't been told. Well, I mean, nobody's told these stories from the zombie perspective, so just that's the way. And to me, that seems simple. That seems like a simple thing. Obviously the writing of it isn't all that simple, but the idea seems to be, the premise feels simple to me. And so that's what I was talking about as far as how can something be more simple?
I see what you mean. I was going to say, because you have this very excellent ability to fit quite a lot into a short space of time, but it doesn't feel overloaded, and you don't need more than you've written. There's no, although I feel like with, so for example, Farm Raised, I feel like that could be a very big story if you wanted it to be, but it didn't need to be. It said exactly what it needed to say, and I assumed what was going to happen quite a bit of the way through, and then I was like, hang on a minute. And you managed to pack that into such a short space. So, I mean, I love them. I think they're great. So
Thank you.
You're obviously very passionate about what you do. You do a lot of different things. You take part in a lot of different things. You've got a lot of hobbies. What are you most passionate about in life?
Well, I mean, other than just the obvious answers, family and, my just general interests, definitely writing, cooking, and judo would be the three things that I would say govern, my philosophy of life, the way I go through life, the way I operate. It's funny when you said, you do a lot in a short period, in a short space. There are two philosophic pillars in judo, and one of them is jita kyoe, which means mutual benefit, mutual welfare and benefit. And the other one is Seiryo Kuzenyo, which means, and everything's in Japanese, so excuse me, giving a little Japanese lesson here, but
Bonus.
but the other one means Seiryo Kuzenyo means maximum efficiency, minimum effort. So, how can you do the most with the least amount of effort? That's kind of the philosophy that governs judo as far as an art form. Well, I've been doing that for 30 plus years. So, how do I apply that to cooking? How do I apply that to my family life? How do I apply that to writing? So that's one of the reasons why I like the short form so much. Is that I like to get to the point, and I like to say what I want to say with as little words as possible. And that to me, it has been a successful formula.
Well, it seems that the things that, as you say, govern your sort of day to day and your passions, they all do seem to be connected with that sort of philosophy in mind. I think it's fascinating because one of the things that I've enjoyed about speaking to writers through this endeavour, creating the website, doing the podcast, just on social media in general, is that you kind of forget when you read a book or read a short story or read poetry or whatever it is that you're consuming, that there's an actual person behind it. And I've always found it interesting to find out more about that person behind the story, because then you get to see the motivations and why did they make this choice for that character, and why did they present it in that way, and why did that twist happen there. So yeah, I can see the relationship between those things, which is just fascinating. So I know that you also belong to a writing club.
Mm-hmm.
How has that worked for you? Because I've heard some writers say that it doesn't work for them. Is it something you enjoy? Do you think it's been helpful for you?
It's a mixed bag. The group that I'm in now is very, very supportive, and it is a almost void negativity space. Everyone's very positive about people's work, and the people that are there are very, very they're serious. They take what they do seriously, and I think one of the biggest issues with just writers groups and critique groups in general is you have a group of people that they may take what they do seriously, but they also take themselves seriously. And I think that's something that is that's a recipe for disaster. I don't think that it's important I don't think people should take themselves too seriously. When you start doing that kind of stuff in these critique groups, you end up with motivations that aren't helpful to the person that's seeking help, and you end up with egos and people saying things that just to say them to include themselves. They don't necessarily have any meaning to what you're doing. You're writing a story, some sort of fantastical story, and someone wants to focus on this little bit of banal minutia that is like, well, that doesn't seem very realistic. Okay, but the dragons and the magic and all that kind of stuff is fine, but the fact that their shoes don't fit, that's the part that really throws this thing in the trash can for you. There's a lot of writing out there and a lot of critiquing out there that I just do not buy into. I think that and I think critique groups are really, generally speaking, bad about perpetuating some of these things. Like, I think show don't tell is the most trite, cliche bunch of horse shit that you can possibly tell someone, and it means it's borderline meaningless. It means absolutely nothing. It's like when someone tells you fish tastes fishy. Yeah, I know fish tastes fishy. It's fish. It doesn't mean anything at all. It means nothing. So.
Yeah.
So it's not helpful. I have not found critique groups, and just generally speaking, very helpful. I've found them actually more detrimental than not. But this group that I'm in now, because the focus is on what people are doing well, I think it's been more beneficial, certainly for me. And I think that's something that you know, people are looking for. Oh, I want people to be critical of my work and all this. Well, okay, but don't you want to know what you're doing well? I mean, and don't you want to know, how you're touching people and what people are getting out of what you're writing? I mean, I know I do, and I don't have any shame in saying that. And I think that lots of times when we get in writers groups, we also, feel like that you have to write for writers. And I think you have to remember that you're not writing for writers, you're writing for readers.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like to think of myself as a reader before I'm a writer. I learned how to read before I learned how to write. And I've read a whole hell of a lot more than I've written. So, I try to approach other people's work as if I was a reader rather than a writer. So I some things that I just don't, that are, considered no-nos, like when someone says, oh, never say that you smelled smoke, say this horribly long-winded, sentence about how the hickory invaded his nostrils. Sometimes you just fucking smell smoke.
No, exactly. I completely get you.
So that's kind of how I feel about writers groups. I mean, it's kind of like therapists. You gotta shop around before you find a decent one.
Oh, for sure. And you've also got to think about what your motivations are. I mean, I don't have any real experience with being within a writing group, but being in the sort of within the community of writers, I'm criticized for being too positive and being too kind. I'm going to preface this with I think star ratings are bollocks. I don't think that they mean anything. They don't mean anything to me. They mean things to other people, and I get that. I want to be able to say the things that I liked about that, and if I didn't like it, I'm not going to review it. And that's as simple as that, because I don't think that it's already been written now. Nothing can be changed. So all you're doing is saying, I personally didn't like this and I thought this was bad. And it's kind of similar with giving people critiques for their writing that hasn't been published yet. And if they want, if somebody wants to have like an honest, critical review where I pick holes in it, I don't think I'm not an authority to do that. And I think a lot of people aren't an authority to do that. So within these groups, you're going to get people that think they are and think that, that they're giving this solid advice, but that's how they would have written it, not how you want to write it. So
yeah, I think that what you said at first is really kind of drives the truck through the paper barrier for me, is that you get criticized for being too kind. Well, who the fuck says that? You know what I mean? What kind of jerk off says that kind of shit?
Some people do say that.
I don't get it. I don't, that's the kind of thing I was talking about just like, well, you're being too kind. You know what? Who in the hell is this person that's telling you this? So and I'm right there with you. I do not give negative reviews. I do not give if I didn't like something, I keep my mouth shut. I don't say a word about it. I didn't care for it. I didn't care for it. There's somebody out there will, so I do not give negative reviews ever.
Yeah.
So.
I can't bear myself to do it unless it's like, I don't know, service that I've received. And I think, please don't go back there. People, this is terrible. If it's like a restaurant, very rarely will I do that, but I'll go out of my way to say this was fantastic, whether it was a book or service I received or an experience that I had, because there are enough people out there that are just going to shit all over you. So I'd rather be a source of positivity and say, these are the things that I want to encourage with you. Because I think also people will carry through. If you say, I liked this, this, and this, people will go, okay, well, people liked this, this, and this, so I'm going to keep doing that. And that helps people to develop. So it's not going to stunt people's development just by being nice. And this world is already a rough place, and if I can be aggressively positive for people, then that's going to be my place. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and being nice doesn't mean you're being dishonest. I mean, you're not saying something dishonest. It's I truly thought this was good. I thought this part was great. I really enjoyed this. You're not going to lie about it. I really liked your terrible word choice here or whatever. Nobody's going to say that. So I don't. Yeah, so I don't subscribe to that at all, and I don't think it's helpful. So that's just me.
For sure. I mean, within the group that you're settled with at the moment, so you say that they're quite positive anyway. Do people still give you corrective feedback? Like, okay, well, I love this. Maybe you could work on this, or is it purely just this is all great?
I read a short story for the group about a week ago, and one of the people in the group, the host actually was, she's very, very supportive of what I'm doing, and she's actually teaching a little course on speculative fiction, and she wanted to use a lot of my work as part of the curriculum, and I was like, hell
That's
yes, you can do
nice.
that. So yeah, it's very cool. So yeah, and but she had a comment about something that said, you switched POVs in this one part. You switched to this character from this character, and she was doing it to just kind of, hey, just I'm letting you know that you did this, and this was a little abrupt change here. And my response is that, oh yeah, I head hop. I head hop all the time. I do that shit all the time. So and I don't really pay much attention to it. I don't really, the rules are rules schmools. You know what I mean? I don't, I'm not a big rule follower. And that rule that says that you have to know the rules to break the rules, that's bullshit too. So.
No, I so agree with you. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it's art, people. It's art. If people want to present their art in a certain way, it's not up to you to tell them that they've done it wrong. If I want to add a prologue, let me add a prologue. I don't care. Let me add 2 prologues. No, that's crazy. I might just to be a rebel.
Yeah, prologue 2, right? You got a whole book of prologues. Honestly, the ending prologue is the last one, right?
It's just going to be prologue 1, prologue 1A, prologue 1A, 1B.
Right.
But I think people need rules. Some people need rules. Not everybody needs rules. And some of the beauty of being part of the indie community is that you can say fuck the rules and you don't have to answer to anybody. And if people don't like the way you structured it, they don't have to keep reading it. They can put it down. It's fine. Nobody's forcing them. We're not saying if you don't read this, then you're not a human anymore. That's crazy.
Right.
We're not always going to love everything that people produce. And there are some books that I've read in the past, even from big publishers, where I've thought, how did this make it through the hoops? It's because it followed the rules. And perhaps the story was terrible, but they fit it into this cookie cutter mold. And I'm not saying that all, books that are published through the traditional route are like that. There are obviously millions and millions of fantastic books out there from everybody. But yeah, I don't think that following this random set of, expectations will dictate whether or not something is of good quality. It's just simply not true. So I think people should be able to. This is a message for anyone that's considering writing anything. Do it the way you want to do it, and if people don't like it, fuck them.
Yeah, they don't. They're not the one writing it. You write whatever you want to write, and if people read it, then your writing is justified. It's pretty much as simple as that. So.
Well, I'm quite lucky because I know my grandma will read whatever I write and she'll love it. So if anybody else reads it, that's a bonus for me.
My family tends to be, certainly my parents tend to be pretty critical of just about anything. But that's just how they are about art, because art is such a lofty thing for them. And I think I broke away from that a little bit. I think my interests are a little bit more, I don't know, popular or commercial or whatever you want to say. I don't know. So, yeah, I'm just writing what I want to write, so I'm not worried
that's
about,
where a lot of passion comes from.
Yeah, not really. Yes, I have everything that happens for me as far as my writing, quote unquote, career goes is all gravy, because I have a very rewarding career that I've built over the past 35 years, and I'm good at it and I enjoy it. So anything that happens for me with the writing is just the cherry on top. So I'm not like a lot of other people that are desperate to get this agent. No, my dream agent. No, my dream publisher. I'm not I don't really give a shit about any of that. It's if it happens for me, well, that's terrific. I mean, that's just fantastic. Yeah. And I'm working on discovering what self-publishing is and what it can do for me and that kind of thing. I'm not saying that that I'm just saying, screw it. I don't, I'm just doing this for whatever. No, I'd like to have some commercial success. I'd like to, I'd like to have all that stuff. But again, it's just gravy. If something happened and I couldn't write anymore, I'd be disappointed, but it wouldn't destroy me. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's one of the things. It's like if I tomorrow had to stop doing judo, it wouldn't destroy me. I have other things in my life that are important that I care about. So, I've been a chef for 35 plus years, and right now I'm hopefully I'll stay here forever. But I'm working at I don't know if you're familiar with the Ronald McDonald House, but I'm the chef at the Ronald McDonald House in Fort Worth, and
that's amazing.
We provide. Yeah, I love it, and I love my job, and it's I'm working with a group of people who are the most caring, dedicated, capable people I've ever worked with in my life. So, and it's a half mile away. So I walk to work, and I've been wanting to walk to work since I could work. So that's kind of how I approach writing is, all this is just extra. It's just the fun part. It's the fun part for me. So I don't have to worry about, the next thing to pay my bills or the next thing to stay on top. I don't have to worry about any of that. I can just enjoy it and just get into it and enjoy it and learn it and be a part of it. So I think that's at least for me, it's certainly been a healthy way to look at it.
That's a very healthy way to look at it. And you clearly have a very rich and full life. And I know that you just said, if you couldn't write anymore, then it wouldn't end everything for you. But do you have any measures for success with writing? Do you think, okay, if one person's read it and they liked it, or are you a numbers person? Are you kind of relaxed about the whole thing?
Yeah, I'd say I was pretty laid back about it. However, I am always looking for the next thing. Okay, this thing got recognized for this. Okay, so now that means I have to get this other thing recognized. It's like a never been satisfied kind of a deal. And I think that's one of the things that keeps me going. And I always keep saying to myself, and it's kind of like a mantra that I've been saying for the past few years about this is, I know something is going to happen because something already has happened. And that's
so you have that potential already.
Yeah, it's already happened. It's already been it's already done. I'm already out there. People have already, strangers have already recognized that I'm doing something well. So, it's sobering but it's also, okay, time to move on. I got to do something else. And so that's, I guess that's where my measure of success is. What's the next thing? I don't have any 10-year goals or anything like that.
Cool. So it's kind of like, okay, so that's found success. Well, I'm going to keep going until, because I feel like I'm just flitted a little bit there. I feel like with writers in general, and creative people, that it's never going to be enough. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that as in like the cup is always perpetually full and you're going to keep drinking from it. And I feel like most writers probably will never stop unless they are, they've made loads of money and they don't need to write anymore because that was their livelihood. But I'm sure that there are people out there that will just keep writing until the day that they can't anymore.
Yeah, I don't see myself stopping, but I also don't. I'm also not aiming for, Danielle Steele type success. You know what I mean? So
yeah. That's like hen's teeth, though, isn't
that's
it?
yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
Do you remember the first thing you ever published?
Yeah, the first thing I published was here's the deal. I've been writing my whole life, and just recently, within the past 4 years, decided to take it seriously enough, decided to stop sitting on the sidelines and start getting out there and starting getting some stuff published. Mm-hmm. So the very first thing that I sent out to get published got published.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
And that was Move, Eat, Repeat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? That's amazing.
Yeah, that was the very first thing I sent out to get published, and it got published. And when I told the editor of the magazine, it's on the Premises is the name of the magazine. Mm-hmm. And when I told him this is my very first thing I've ever gotten published, and he was completely floored. He's like, I can't believe that, and no, this is the very first thing I've ever even tried to get published. And then like very shortly after that, I ended up taking second in a short story contest where I won like $475 from this short story contest, which is, a pretty big prize. And so here I am, like less than 6 months in, and I've already had this stuff going, and I'm over here. What are all these people complaining about? This shit is easy. I don't know what. And then,
for you.
Yeah. And then, 2 years later with, dozens and dozens of rejections from this and that and the other thing. And so, then I realized, oh, well, I just happened to, it was just a fortunate like storm that happened, this is not normal. So,
you are also a very good writer. I think that probably helped
thank you.
Well, that was probably one of the things that helped as well, not just chance.
Yeah. A lot of practice.
That was the first thing that you got published, actually. Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it. I chewed through that very, very quickly.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed writing it. I'm always looking for like, what's the angle? What's the angle? This story's been told, but what's the angle? So,
Oh, that comes
that's kind of
across,
where
definitely.
I am with most of my stuff. Yeah, that's kind of where I come across with all this. Where I go with certainly with all my short stories, and I'm dabbling in novels, so we'll see how that goes. But I feel more comfortable writing short fiction. Mm.
Oh yeah, it definitely seems like there's you've written it with purpose rather than just like, this will be fun. So with that being the first thing that you published, how does that compare in terms of your confidence as a writer to the most recent thing that you published?
Oh, well, I would say my confidence right now is unearthly. I feel extremely confident about what I'm writing and what I'm doing. I have two short stories that are coming out in two different periodicals, two different magazines in February.
Amazing!
And one of those just took honorable mention with the Writers of the Future contest, and that was a big deal. Wow. So at least for me, it was, because that's a huge contest. They had like thousands of dollars in prizes and stuff. So I didn't win anything other than just recognition. But for me, recognition is enough,
It's huge for somebody to even say out into the world, like, this thing is fantastic. Like that's worth more than money.
Right. Yes. Strangers saying that that's the success to me, is touching people that, you have not met, that you don't know. I don't know who these people are, and they're the ones that are saying, hey, we really enjoyed this. And so that's a lot for me. That's a lot. So my confidence, I would say, is inflated right now. So, that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm like, I got to keep going, or else I'm not going to feel good about myself, that kind of the thing. So, that's kind of where I am with it.
No, I feel you. Are you able to tell me a little bit about these short stories that are coming out, or are you bound to secrecy?
No, I can tell you about them. I don't, there's nothing saying that I can't talk about them.
What sort of things they are?
Okay, so one of them is coming out in a magazine called Small World City, and it's the only English online magazine in Bangladesh.
That's cool.
They have Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah, they have a readership of about 5,000, which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty good. And that story is called Microaggression, and
Okay.
it's about this girl that presents a discovery as her science project to her science teacher, that she has discovered an alien invasion, a microscopic alien invasion. And there are some racial overtones in it, and
Mm-hmm.
some social commentary on race relations and things like that. And that's coming out some point in February,
Amazing.
February 1st, I believe, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then the other one is called "Take Me Out to the Algorithm," and that's coming out in February as well, in a magazine called Fano Magazine,
Mm-hmm.
Phano, and that's about kind of an aging all-star baseball player
Mm-hmm.
that that is, I guess, the last remnant of what baseball used to be. Now that it's automated with AI umpires and AI, uh, uh, you know, uh, crowd noises and that kind of stuff. And he's kind of the last vestige of the way it used to be.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So
I
those are the ones coming out in February.
Oh, cool, excellent.
Mm.
And so, in terms of sort of what my brain just stopped working for a second. Then, do you ever get that? I was just buffering, and I could see
Oh,
this
big
little wheel
time!
going round, and I
All the
was like,
time, I
"What
walk
was
into
I
the room
saying?
and be like, "Why am I in this
Where am
room?"
I?" Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So are these things that people can access? Do they have to pay for a subscription to the service? Is it going to be in a print magazine? Do you know whether or not the listeners will be able to get hold of them?
I know Small World City it's a free magazine.
Cool.
Fano, I think, is a subscriber
Mm-hmm.
magazine, but I think there's like certain parts of their magazine that are not subscribing that you can actually access.
Okay.
But I'm not sure on that. I'm not sure on
Okay.
how easy it is to get to those magazines. They're both relatively new, so I don't know what their longevity is, but I don't care about that. They were able to, you know, they were the ones that told me, "Hey, we really want to publish this," and I said, "Hey, I really want you to publish this," so that sounds good to me.
Oh, good
Um,
deal.
yeah, right.
um,
Yeah, it's just win-win.
so I assume that they'll links will be on your website, so if people do want to find them, then they can.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah,
Okay, excellent,
yeah.
fantastic.
Website and Blue Sky and X and wherever else. I'm tattooed on my forehead and everything else. So yeah.
Maybe pick a larger part of your body because you're going to run out of space with everything you're going to get
My
published in the
head's pretty
future.
darn big, so I don't. And we can list it out there like that. I'll shave my head if I have to. So
That is dedication. Oh dear, that's funny. So, you said that you were working on some novels. I didn't know if that was plural, if I caught
mm-hmm.
that correctly. What are you? What's next? What's the next thing that you're going to concentrate
um,
on, or is it 10 things?
uh, I have a bunch of ideas for short stories that are written down.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of short story collections that are out being queried right now. One of them
Cool,
has been shortlisted on a publisher by a publisher, so we'll see how that goes.
amazing.
And I have a novel that I'm querying right now. I don't expect people to be too interested in it, to be honest with you, but you don't know unless you put yourself out there. That's something that definitely, that I'd like to tell anyone, just from my experiences, as short as it's been. Just put it out there. Just put it out there. Just
Mm.
don't worry about it being good. That's not your job as a writer. Let someone else decide if it's any good.
Mm.
Do it the best you can, and then just put it out there. Um, I think that too many people hold themselves back, and they get into this, it has to be just right and it has to be just so, and all this kind of stuff. And, perfection is the enemy of good. So
Especially with
I
art
just,
as well. What's to say?
yeah,
Who's
yeah.
to say that it's perfect in any form?
60% good and on paper is better than 100% perfect and stuck in your head. So just get it done and get it out there, and mistakes and errors, and everything else is fine.
Hmm.
But I don't expect people to really get into this novel that I've put out there, as far as agents and publishers and things like that go, just because it's a little short. It's like 58,000 words, and
Okay.
um, they're very interested in a little bit longer than that. But I'm like I said, I like brevity, so I told
Mm.
the story, and that's the story, and that's it. And it's and I've always, like I said before, I've been into comic books from when I was a kid. So it's a kind of a supervillain origin story. It's a
Okay.
sports supervillain origin story that draws upon my background in judo.
Mm.
So yeah, this judo prodigy is uh, you know on the eve of the Olympics. She develops dangerous superpowers, and it's kind of does she use them to win? Does she not use them to win? Does she use them to coerce people to keep it quiet? Does so? And I guess it's a YA novel, but
Mm.
it's pretty grim. It certainly doesn't have all the trappings of a YA novel where the protagonist is on this journey to coming of age kind of thing. Now this is a downfall. This isn't even an anti-hero. This is a villain. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, so and some people like to read about that kind of stuff, and that's fine. That's great. Those people that do, and but that's why I don't think commercially it's gonna, you know. But I'm still proud of it, and I'm still happy with the way it turned out.
Awesome. So, do you have you got like a time frame that you're like, okay, it's been out on query for X amount of time now. I'm just gonna self-publish it. Do you know what your limit is, or are you just gonna
I
see how it takes you where it
Yeah,
takes
I don't. I don't. I tend to be pretty intuitive about this kind of stuff.
you? Hmm.
So, well, I don't know how intuitive. I tend to use my intuition there. That doesn't mean that I'm intuitive about it. But yeah, I just kind of feel it out. Like, how's it going? Do I have interest in it? Do I not have interest in it?
Mm.
Whatever, and we'll see. And I've given it to a couple of people that are, younger readers, and just be like, hey, what do you think about this? So we'll see what they have to say.
Cool.
But regardless of what they say, it's a finished piece. I'm not going to go back and you know change all this up and all this, and so that the agents maybe get into it a little bit more, and I just that's not something I don't think I'm the right person for, like really heavy traditional publishing. I just don't
Yeah.
I just don't think that's me.
Well, you
You
never know
know,
what's going to happen. I suppose
you never
by
know.
just letting yourself go with the flow, it might
Right.
stumble into the right hands, and then all of a sudden you've signed a movie deal. You never know.
Yeah, you never. That's true. You never know. That's why you just got to put it out there. Just put it out there and see what happens. And don't worry about the rejections and all that kind of stuff. So
Well, this is it. You're not going to win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. So,
that's it, right? Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So, um, but like I said before, I'm enjoying the ride. It's been great. It's been something that's been a terrific source of self discovery for me, and just in writing in general.
Mm.
You know, it's been a good way to kind of sort out some of the things that I see in the world, and some of the things that I truly feel like. Um, you know, that the story I was telling you about the baseball AI story,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that after I'd written it. I realized after I wrote it that I'm not anti AI. I'm not one of these like these people that you read about that are like, Frankenstein's monster, fire bad. I'm not like that with AI. I don't have that same attitude with it. But at the same time, I think that removing all the human element from something, say like a sport, because let's say, sport would definitely be more fair without human referees. It would definitely be more fair. But would it be fun? Would it have the spirit of the game still? I question that. I question whether or not it would have those things, and I didn't really realize that was something that meant something to me until after I wrote that story. I don't know if we should be replacing people with AI on stuff like that, on judgment call. Do we need, completely impartial judges? I don't know. So,
yeah, that's a fascinating thought, because I have always considered there is a place for AI, but I feel that we're on this like cusp of either losing the ability to enjoy life and being slaves to the machine, which I know is a very dystopian view, or being able to just quit everything and just be creative and frolic in the grass. And I don't think that's the side that it's going to fall on because of the use of it in creative endeavors. And I think with sports, for example, I'm not a sporty person. My favorite sport is eating and sitting down.
right.
But I just think part of the fun of being a spectator of sport is the unknown and the human element of making that judgment, because so much, like, I've seen people, some of my friends love watching football. I suppose it'd be soccer because I'm British, and they love yelling at a referee. That's part of the fun of the game and part of the fun of the spectatorship. So would it make the sport fair? Possibly, yeah. But would it make it less fun? Also possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who are they going to yell at? The computer? We're supposed to just yell at printers.
Well, if that's the case, if you end up yelling at, say, AI referees, because of their ruling, you're yelling at the rules now. You're yelling at the sport. You're not yelling at the person that's making these determinations. It's the sport itself.
Oh, that's
in the way it's designed. You're not, that's what I'm saying is it does that take away from, the experience of the sport? Where's the human drama of athletic competition now that humans aren't in it anymore?
Very good point. We'll just have to see how this develops, because quite frankly, it's completely out of our control.
It is.
It's going to happen when it happens.
Yeah, and if anybody thinks that we're not already living in a dystopian, machines have taken over kind of a thing, and you ain't paying attention, because, how many times does the normal person look at their phone for anything? Having that thing in your pocket is the same thing. Like knowing something and not knowing something is the same thing now, because you have access to the entirety of human knowledge literally in your pocket. So,
which is wonderful and awful. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's also terrifying and dystopian. Yeah. So we're living it. We just aren't, in the Matrix, at least as far as we know. We can actually get up and
very good simulation.
Yeah, it's had to be really good. So
maybe the Matrix films were actually a plant. Like, oh, look how unrealistic this is, and actually it's very realistic, and it's just a big cosmic joke.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I even remember anything from the second Matrix, and I didn't think I ever watched the third one. So, as far as I'm concerned, the first one was the only one. Yeah, I never saw it. I never watched it after that. So
that's okay.
Yeah, which is
all right. Don't worry about it. You got the gist.
Yeah, I got it. Hugo Weaving was in it, and that's all I needed to know. So, big Hugo Weaving fan. Is underrated actor, great guy, cool dude.
Isn't he?
So.
Oh yeah, he's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, he's. I took an online quiz once a little while ago. Well, a little while ago, several years ago. What action hero were you? And and mine was V.
No kidding.
Yeah, I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'll take that. That's I was I'm like, oh yeah, I'll take that all the way. So yeah, because I love V for Vendetta. I thought it was a great graphic novel. I thought it was a great movie. So yeah, I was into it.
Excellent. So before we go, this has been an absolute pleasure. I just wanted to talk about your short story Farm Raised because it gave me whiplash and I enjoyed the ride. Where did this come from? Because it felt a little bit like grim fairy tale. It was very dark, and it wasn't dark in the way that I assumed up to like the midpoint. So where did it come from?
That that story that was born of like kind of like a 13-year-old, prepubescent or pubescent boy's dream kind of a thing.
Okay.
And what if this boy was, if the family was, near destitute, and what and they've been removed, that it does, the boy is not worldly. He doesn't know much. He just knows what his hormones tell him, and that's pretty much as much as he knows. And he's the only boy in the family. He has 12 siblings, and they're all sisters, and he's the oldest. So what must that be like, and how how hard might that be on his parents, and how far would they be willing to go? What kind of a world would that be? And so I just went all the way with it. I just kind of, really I just went, okay, there's, two suns in the sky, and then there's mermaids, and there's a mulicorn, and, there's a dragon that attacks a gelding. There's all harpies that they get eggs from, and all this kind of stuff. So I just went for it, and that was part of the that kind of simplicity that I was talking about. Let me tell this story. Let me tell this story in the most uncomplicated way that I can. He's got not giving too much away, but he's got parents that he can't trust but doesn't know it. And there's a lot of people out there that are like that. There's a lot of kids that are out there. I've been a youth sports coach for a very long time, and there's a lot of people out there that have parents that they can't trust, and don't know that they can't trust their parents. And that's kind of where that came from. That's kind of where that idea came from. Because, and it's yes. And I have gotten, feedback from that story about it being very abrupt and very rough, and people going, oh, ouch, that kind of thing. And and that was that was deliberate. That was absolutely deliberate. The whiplash is deliberate.
Excellent.
On that story.
Well, it worked.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Thanks.
So I've mentioned a couple of your short stories, and I haven't said where people can find them. So would you be able to tell our lovely listeners where they can find your current published work, and also where to contact you? Or
all of my well, not all of my short stories, but the short stories that I have out there right now are all on my website, shortstorysalavon.com, all one word. Excellent. All lowercase. And you can find me on just about every social media out there as Salavon Ian. That's my handle. That where you can find me, except for on Instagram, where I'm the fighting chef.
Excellent.
Which I usually just use Instagram to watch videos of animals. It's pretty much the only reason why I'm on there.
Same.
watch a lot of animal videos. Yeah.
Food and dogs.
Yeah, right. I watch a lot of dog videos. Exactly. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ian.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. It's been a blast. I enjoyed it a whole lot.
Oh, me too. It's been a lot of fun, and as I said earlier, it's been such a pleasure to be able to get into the brains of writers, because you can read something on the surface, and then when you get to know the person behind it, you're like, oh, there's the motivation, there's the drive, there's the creativity. That's the experience they had as a kid. So it's honestly been a pleasure. When this episode airs, it will be before the Indiosyncrasy, the website, goes live. But after the 1st of January, if you are listeners after the 1st of January, you'll be able to find Ian's author feature on the website, which will include all of your links to social media and your website as well. And I'll also put them in the description of the episode, so it's easy for you to find Ian's work, because I'm sure some of you will have been lured into this curiosity of what on earth we've been talking about with your work. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you again. I really appreciate your time and for taking a chance on this podcast, and it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, hopefully we can do another episode in the future where we talk about your next big thing.
I would love to. Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, thank you, and thank you listeners for joining us. We'll catch you later.